You are all very welcome to March's committee of our Governance and Strategic Planning Committee. I am going to hand straight over to our Chief Executive for notice or for our members' attendance and apologies.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. To all members of the Governance and Strategic Planning Committee, you're hereby summoned to attend the monthly meeting of the committee, which will be a hybrid meeting conducted remotely via WebEx and physically here in the Council Chamber on Tuesday, the 4th of March at 4 o'clock. Alderman Cook. Alderman Cook. Alderman Hussey.
Aye.
Alderman Wilkinson.
Here, John.
Councillor Donnelly. Councillor Sandra Duffy.
Sure.
Councillor Farrell.
Here.
Councillor Hart.
And Shaw online.
Councillor Heaney.
And Shaw.
Councillor Jackson.
Sure.
Councillor McDade. Councillor McGinley.
Sure.
Councillor Moody. Councillor Farrell. And Councillor Tierney. Thank you, members.
Very good, John. Moving on to the broadcasting statement. I'd like to remind everyone physically present at the meeting or in attendance remotely that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. This broadcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with the protocol. Due to your attendance at this meeting, you're consenting to be informed and the use and storage of these images for broadcasting or training purposes and for the purpose of keeping historical records and making these records available to the public. Members and approved speakers are reminded they only have their cameras on and mics and cameras on while speaking at the meeting and to use the chat facility to request to speak. A copy of the Council privacy notice may be found on the Council website. Members, moving straight on now to item 5, it's a deputation, and it's my pleasure to welcome Ms. Tess Barkin, Ms. Natasha Elcock, and Mr. Edward DeFarn from the Grenfell United Committee. They present to this council. I see Edward online.
Afternoon.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm going to pass over to yourselves to make a presentation. The format of the meeting would be that there'll be an initial 10 minutes for yourselves to present to committee, and there may be there'll be an opportunity for questions at the end of that. So, have you got a presentation that you wish to present?
It's not necessarily a presentation. It was more sort of just like an update from us off the back of the meeting that we had with each other a while ago, and just to sort of keep the communications and the dialogue going with yourselves. I know you've all been very supportive of some of our campaigns. So as you know, the public inquiry is now finished. The report to the inquiry has been submitted, and also the government has responded to it. And as we expected, there's not really much to talk about from their report. No sort of immediate changes to any of their recommendations. They've now also announced that the tower is going to be coming down. And I'm not sure if you've seen in the media sort of our reactions to that and the lack of engagement and consultation that they've had with the families and the survivors about the decision. I mean, we know the tower has to come down at some point and it can't stay the way it is indefinitely, but unfortunately they've come to the decision that the tower will come down to ground level. And a lot of families have not been engaged in the consultation period or process, sorry. So that's something that we're still sort of battling with, although we don't feel very optimistic or hopeful that that will change. And also, I'm just thinking if there was anything else that I'm missing. I know a couple of more of my other guys are on the meeting as well. There's been some recent news about Kingspan, who are still benefiting from government contracts and public body contracts. They've been using their installation products on a train station just outside of Grenfell Tower. So that's still happening, the whole Kingspan situation, and now we're at a point where, with all of this over, I mean, there's still things that we can do to try to sort of keep the pressure on and help with keeping Grenfell in the public eye. But we're now at a process where we're approaching the criminal process. Even though when I say approaching, I mean that's probably going to take another 2 to 3 years, maybe even longer. And we don't know even once that happens, how long that's going to take. So really, guys, what we wanted to do is just sort of just say thank you for your time, for having us here today. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you for supporting us in our previous campaigns when it's come to Kingspan and Ulster Rugby. And just to give you an update from us, and to sort of see in what other ways we can continue the relationship and the support from yourselves.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to offer, is there any other members of the committee want to make a contribution before I open it to the floor for questions?
Yeah, hi, my name's Edward Daffon. I'm a committee member of Grenfell United. I just want to really just back up what Karim said, in terms of us appreciating your support. Also in the government response to the inquiry recommendations, they are potentially looking to ban Kingspan from public procurement contracts. And obviously that's something that we very much support. Having read the results of the public inquiry and seeing how Kingspan, Celotex, Arconic, some of these other firms behaved in putting their profit above our human lives and the devastating loss of 72 people that we experienced because of their greed, essentially. So unfortunately, like with everything else in the government's response, none of this is happening overnight. But I just wanted to flag that up as something that we're really keen to see that happens. I mean, the way that we look at it, the only language that Kingspan understand is that they can just carry on making more money. And obviously, we want to make sure that that is as difficult for them as possible, because we don't believe that they have shown any contrition, any real genuine remorse for the devastating impact that their actions had on our community. And I'll just thank you very much for allowing me to speak. Thank you.
Okay, and Tess, is there anything you wish to contribute before I go to questions from members?
Nothing from me. I think Karim and Ed have spoken perfectly. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to open up the floor, but before doing so, I just, on behalf of the committee, just want to thank you for attending again. And I just want to commend the work of the Grenfell United in campaigning on the back of what was a devastating tragedy. But I think the response from the government in London has angered a lot of people and angered a lot of people within this council area. And it's been rightly pointed out that that we would have seen a much different response if this tragedy had have happened in another part of London, if it had happened in another area. And that is disgraceful in itself. So I just want to commend the work that yourselves are doing, and from our perspective, it's great to have you here to present to the committee. Open it up to the floor, members. Is there any questions or comments? Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the update. Very much appreciated. It's just a clarification, if I may. and it's in regard to am I correct in that you told us that there's an ongoing criminal investigation in regard to the Kingspan scenario with Grenville Tower? Thank you.
I can answer that if that's okay. So yes, Kingspan, among the other manufacturers and companies that were involved with the refurbishment of the tower, are all under criminal investigation by the police and have been from day one. Hence why our position is very strong that these organizations should not be able to continue to profit by using government contracts, public body contracts, and targeting the UK market for selling their flammable products, which are still on the market today, even so after the fire. Kingspan, like some of the other organizations, have been heavily lobbying the government to not only continue to sell their products, but to make sure that their products remain being available to use in this country. And also they are working with the government and advising them on building future greener and safer homes. This is not just Kingspan, this is Kingspan, this is Saint-Gobain, this is Celotex, who are part of Saint-Gobain, and Arconic as well. They're all sort of part of like these or some of them are part of these parliamentary advisory groups, and have a long sort of a relationship with the government, and want to continue to be able to advise them in terms of building greener and safer homes for the future. So we are very strongly against this, especially since they're under criminal investigation by the police for Grenfell Tower.
Thank you for that clarification. Thank you.
Councillor Donnelly.
Good Chair, and thanks, Green, Edward, and Tess. You're very welcome, and I'd like to send solidarity and thanks for the sterling work that you have done. And I think it's also that there's 7 organisations. Not only is there criminal prosecution, potential criminal prosecution and charges, that 7 organisations are under investigation for professional misconduct. And I would hope, as I'm sure that any decent human being would hope, that the people responsible for allowing this to happen have a price to pay. I think it's unfortunate that that not a lot has been learnt from this, and as the chair pointed out here, that if it had been another part of Britain, that there may have been a different attitude. Effectively, most of the victims here were working class people and people of colour. And again, that it's not that this fire couldn't have been prevented. It was actually predicted that campaigners had got to the stage where it had been pointed out on numerous occasions by Grenfell Action Group, by the Fire and Emergency Planning Authority, who had serious issues with this. And instead of listening to the concerns and preventing this, 2 of the tenants were actually threatened with legal action, and 2 of those tenants were killed in this fire. So I think that nothing has been learned from this, and the lack of consultation with the relatives and the residents of it is it's unfortunate, to say the least. But I would just like to offer, and I think it's also, I need to say that given the allegations that's been made against Kingspan, and they have admitted that that they weren't up to scratch, they put it mildly. I think it's an absolute shame that some organisations here in Ireland, whether it be the GAA, Ulster Rugby, and individual sports men and women, are still prepared they take money off the like a Kingspan for sponsorship. So again, I'd like to thank you for your presentation and just send solidarity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, members, Councillor O'Farrell.
Again, Gurmila Magara, Akairley, just Bawailam Falchakol, Rumpu. I would like to welcome them, and I'd like to send our solidarity towards them as well. And thank you very much for that update and the information. Gurmila Mayogat.
Okay, Councillor Farrell.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to Kareem, Edward and Tess for coming here today. It's not your first time, so it's great to have you back. Obviously, the disaster at Grenfell was an absolute tragedy, and even the British government have said that it could have been prevented. It shouldn't have happened. I just want to touch briefly on the inquiry report and the British government's response to it. So it had 58 recommendations. They were all agreed in full or in principle. And the British government said that they're going to take tough action and people are going to see fundamental change. And there is mention that 7 of the firms that were involved in this disaster face possible debarment from public sector contracts. So do you have any direct contact with the British government in regard to the implementation of these recommendations? Because the feedback we're getting here today is that you're not happy with the rate of progress. So is there a mechanism that exists to allow you to feed into that system? But thank you for coming today.
Ed, do you want to?
Yeah, okay.
Happy to. So one of the recommendations that we've been campaigning for a number of years now, with the support of Inquest, is a national oversight mechanism that basically is an independent public body that has responsibility for following through on government recommendations from public inquiries and coroner reports. Basically, what happens is that, you know, like you become a victim of a tragedy, and then you go through a public inquiry, and instead of these recommendations being enacted upon, you find as an individual many years later on, you're still having to kind of monitor and police the government's response to recommendations. A national oversight mechanism is something that would take that responsibility away from families and place it firmly in the hands of an independent body. That was something that Sir Martin Morbick addressed in his report. It was something that we've been campaigning with the Labour government to implement, and we were very disappointed to find that, in fact, basically what they're offering is a kind of watered down version of that, and something very different from what we were asking for. I mean, we speak to government, we try and, I mean, keep our foot on their throat is the way that I would express it, in terms of, like, nothing seems to happen without pressure from bereaved and survivors, and particularly over the last 7.5, 8 years, the change and the road to justice has been glacial and tortuous, and and that's why, you know, us forming relationships with bodies like yours is so important, because none of this stuff happens on its own. It requires people who are motivated to see change, keeping their foot on the accelerator and making sure that that change happens. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And just to add to that, you know, this isn't the first time that we've heard the government are going to implement things and make changes. When the first report came out, we were told that everything was going to be implemented in principle, and here we are today, nearly 8 years on, and that still hasn't happened. So just like Ed said, you know, being here today is important. Being able to be united in this whole wanting for change and putting pressure on the government is massively important, because, like Ed said, without that, they would just kick it in the long grass.
Okay, Remember, I don't see any further indicated speakers. So all's what's left to me for me to say is just thank yous for attending. I know your frustrations in relation to this process have been well heard and well aired, and I know that the lack of confidence in delivery from a government in London is something that we're only too familiar with, and I think I just want to go back on and refer to a point that Councillor Donnelly made in relation to nothing being learned from the tragedy at Grenfell. And one of the things that is absolutely certain is that nothing would have been learned and there would have been no changes whatsoever if it wasn't for the campaigning from grassroots activists like yourself. I, on behalf of the committee, just want to again send our solidarity to everybody connected to Grenfell United. Wish you all the best in the future, and if there's anything that we can do as a council to help your campaign, please let us know. So just on that point, I just want to thank you for attending today and look forward to seeing the much needed changes and looking forward to finally seeing a government in London taking action on the back of this tragedy. So thanks, and you're more than happy to continue on the rest of the meeting. But at this point, your contribution has come to an end. So just thanks for your attendance.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us, and thank you for listening to us. And we'll be in touch with any stuff that we may need your help or advice with in the future. So thank you.
Okay, all right.
Thank you very much.
Moving on now to item. I'll go back to item 4, declarations of members' interests. Is there any declarations of interest? And if there's any emerges throughout the meeting, please just indicate. Item 6, chair's business. I have 2. I've been contacted by one member and I've an item myself. Councillor Duffy had requested to come in relation to the expansion of the university.
Thank you, Chair, and I appreciate that you have brought me in on this item. I just wanted to briefly welcome the announcement last week from the Minister for Economy, the University and the Task Force regarding the acquisition of the Timber Quay building along the quay. This purchase absolutely sets out the direction of travel for the university, and it follows the purchase of all our properties there along the quay. So I want to put on record our thanks to Minister Archibald, who has followed in the footsteps of her predecessor, Minister Murphy. I know that some people had expressed concern at a change in minister and what that impact that might have on the direction of travel. And I think that we can see that it has had none. The direction of travel is very clearly set with the task force, and we can see that now with the university very clearly looking for additional space to accommodate the students at up to 10,000, and we can see that now moving along the quay and up towards the city centre, which has a great visual impact for people in the city when they can actually feel that that movement is happening and it is moving in the right direction. I think that I've seen that the Department for Economy has now spent 21 million on the expansion of the university and through the task force. So I think that also has to be welcomed, and just put on record again our thanks to Stephen Kelly as the chair of the task force and everyone else involved, because I think the speed of travel in the task force is fantastic to see. And as a council who often talks about the expansion and how it's a priority for us, it's really good to see this progress. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Farrell.
Thank you, Chair, and I would like to echo Councillor Duffy's remarks. There have been some good news stories in terms of McGee expansion over the last number of weeks. We've heard of, also University's purchase of land along Queen's Quay. We've heard of their intention to purchase the Timber Quay office block to facilitate further expansion. It's all good news. It's all moving in the right direction, and bit by bit, this is starting to come together. We want to see a minimum of 10,000 students at McGee. It's unfortunate the programme for government just commits to 10,000, but I suppose that's a battle for another day. But I'd also like to mention that this week, the teaching block at McGee was renamed in honour of John and Pat Hume. We think that's a fitting tribute to those architects of the peace process, true Derry people. We think a more fitting tribute would be a minimum of 10,000 students at McGee, but it is welcome progress nonetheless.
Okay. Can I bring the Chief Executive on?
Thank you, Chair. Just on the back of that conversation, just to remind members that the chair of the McGee Task Force had addressed a special council meeting when the interim report was published back at the tail end of last summer, and he's scheduled to come in on April 7th to another special council meeting to update members on the McGee Task Force action plan that was printed and published in December just past. So 7th of April at 4 o'clock, a special council meeting to receive Stephen Kelly. Thank you for allowing me in, Chair.
Thank you. And I just see on the chat box, there's a declaration of interest from Councillor McDade as an employee. So the next item for Chair's business is from myself, members, and it's just in relation to International Women's Day. It's this Saturday, the 8th of March, and I just want to commend all the community organisations, the length and breadth of this council area, that are putting on events to celebrate International Women's Day. And it's not just the one day. I know there's many community organisations that are putting on a whole week of events to celebrate, and there are some very inspirational, strong women who have contributed quite a lot into this council area and beyond, that are remembered, reflected, or given a platform to tell their story as part of this International Women's Day events. And I'll specifically make reference to the event in memory of Roisin Barton, the mural for Nell McCafferty, and the book signing for Roisin Walsh in the Museum of Free Derry. So, and I would encourage all that are able to make it to attend the Alliance for Choice rally that's taking place on Saturday. So I just wanted to make comments and reflect on the effort that's been put on to celebrate International Women's Day this year. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for raising the issue of International Women's Day and the many excellent events that are being held right across this council area, honouring many fantastic women who we have known, and unfortunately some that we have lost. It is also this year significant that many of these events are highlighting the issue of violence against women and girls and the ongoing campaign and strategies to address it, and how to end the scourge in our communities. It's important that we continue to campaign to highlight and to raise our voices in opposition, to call out those that engage in it and those that are apologists for it, and indeed those who stay silent in the face of the violence. I believe it is the theme of Strabon's campaign this year. Silence is violence, speak up. I raise this, Chair, unfortunately, as I have been contacted directly by women throughout this council area. Women who have read, as I have, an article by Alison Morris in yesterday's Belfast Telegraph. An article that reports that a councillor here provided support to a man charged with 7 counts of rape. An article that accuses this councillor of re-traumatising the survivor with his performance at our January council meeting. This, we all need to agree, is shameful. I would say, coming out of that article, that there are a few questions that we as a society need to ask, and particularly a few questions that the SDLP need to answer. Firstly, when did they first know about this allegation? Who in the SDLP knew about it? What did they do at the time? Did they investigate? Was there actions taken? And why, having known this, did they allow Councillor Tierney to embark on a round of the media and this council portraying himself as the victim, someone that had been duped, knowing that he had been accused of this before? Chair, this council has a position of zero tolerance of violence against women and girls. We have called for our allies to stand with us, to call out misogyny, to call out the defenders of abuse. This has to stand even when it's difficult, even when it's your friend. It's not just the rallies, it's not the words in the chamber or the photo opportunities. It is about standing up, not being silent, not being complicit, even when it's hard. No one will trust us, and no one will trust our words if we don't. Action does speak louder than words, and women in our communities are looking at us now. They are looking at us to use our voices, and they are looking at us to give them confidence. And if the woman in the Belfast Telegraph yesterday was brave enough to step forward, then I'm brave enough to stand beside her. Are you? I hope everyone that sits in this chamber can say the same. I ask, Chair, that we write to Claire Hanna, as the leader of the SDLP, to answer these questions. Their silence on this has been absolutely deafening, and I'm sorry for bringing it up, but I feel very strongly that the woman yesterday in the Belfast Telegraph felt forced to come forward. So I feel that I need to do likewise.
Chair, I'll second the proposal.
Okay, can I ask if there's any proposals? Can they be emailed in? And whilst that proposal's been emailed, Councillor McDade has indicated this wants to come in. Councillor McDade?
Thank you, Chair. I suppose I want to just associate myself with your comments about World or International Women's Day on Saturday, particularly around the events that are happening and the rally that is happening on Saturday, to encourage as many people as possible to go to it. Unfortunately, I'm not about this weekend, so I'm really hoping to see a big crowd whenever I look at it on social media afterwards. I'm not going to say too much about what Councillor Duffy has said there, but I will say that I stand in solidarity with every single victim and survivor of any form of abuse. In regards to what the party is doing or anything else, I am happy for the party to speak up and say what has been happening. I haven't been involved in any investigation or anything like that, because that would happen at a higher level at the senior leadership. But I'll leave it up to our party to decide whether we're supporting the proposal. But I would imagine, in my opinion, we will be supporting it. But yeah, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Donnelly?
Good, Chair. And I'd like to, Councillor Duffy, the issue about Councillor Tierney, it does raise a lot of questions, and I think there is answers that's needed. There was comments on Facebook a couple of weeks ago around the time of the previous incident had come to the fore, and I had seen a comment, and I had asked members of the SDLP what, and they were told that they weren't aware of it. But I think Councillor Duffy is right. you know, I was surprised and shocked when I seen it. And I think that there is answers here, that there is answers that need to be supplied. But in regards to International Women's Day, I want to agree with the previous comments. And, you know, if it wasn't for, you know, women have led the way. Women have led the way in the struggle in many ways in Ireland. But I also like to pay tribute to the many, many women who, throughout the years of conflict in this country, who were the backbone of communities, and many of them women had paid a huge toll. They have buried sons, they've buried children before their time, they've visited prisons, and they kept families going whilst there was mayhem all around them. So I agree with the comments. Thank you.
Okay, members, is there any further speakers? Councillor Farrell.
Just briefly, Chair, we'd like to see the word in the motion first, please.
The wording of the motion is coming on screen now. Okay, do members need a few minutes to read the motion?
Thanks, Chair. I know that Councillor McDade has already spoken on this item, but just to confirm and reaffirm that we are happy to support this proposal. We are happy that Council writes to the party leader seeking clarification on this. I have spoken to Brian Tierney about this. I am aware of the circumstances, and my understanding was that he liked a post on Facebook of a person that he knew that died. I haven't seen any reference, to be honest, but happy to support the recommendation. And hopefully we can get a fuller response from the party. Thank you.
Okay, members, I'm not hearing any dissenting voices. Alderman Hussey.
Chair, I was waiting on the reply from the left, and having heard that reply, I'm content to support the motion. One thing that surprises me, though, is that nowhere in here has anybody suggested referring the issue to the Commissioner. Thank you.
Okay, so members, I'm going to take that as unanimous. If there are No further indications. Okay, members, moving on to item 7, the matters arising from the open minutes of the Governance and Strategic Planning Committee held on Tuesday, the 4th of February, pages 3 to 12. Any matters arising, members? Okay, none in the chamber. Councillor Harkin, I don't see your name in the chat box, but your hand's raised.
Chair, that was from the previous discussion.
Okay. So there's no matters arising. Moving on to item 8, one in with the City of Bethlehem. And over to yourself, John.
Thank you, Chair. And the Director of Business and Culture can't be here this afternoon, so his apologies are sent. But members, the paper's fairly self-explanatory. Obviously, there was a notice of motion passed by this council quite some time ago, it has to be said, and there has been repeated opportunity or repeated attempt to make contact with the Mayor of Bethlehem, but obviously due to the unique circumstances that exist there, that has been difficult. As highlighted at the last meeting of the committee, a meeting was finally arranged in the middle of February. A phone call took place between the two mayors with officers in support, and it was an opportunity to consider how we might move this forward. At present, Bethlehem is twinned with over 100 cities across the world. Some are active, some are not particularly active, and obviously any friendship arrangement or twinning arrangement would normally be along the lines of looking for cultural, educational and economic ties or some form of relationship along those lines to ensure that it's sustainable and that it endures. So we've set out the potential of initially a friendship arrangement between the two cities that would be a stepping stone to a twinning or a sister city relationship. As members know, there are different titles around these and different types of arrangements tend to exist depending on the country or the city. So the two cities through the call have agreed to develop the areas of cooperation and friendship. There had been a discussion on this back in Bethlehem City Council, and it very much wishes to take this relationship forward as well. Potential areas of common interest are set out in section 3.6 of the report across the broad areas of collaboration that emerge from the telephone call. So the next steps, members, if you are in agreement, would be that officers from the two cities would draw up the exact terms of reference that a friendship agreement could be built upon and the nature of the engagement. And as I said previously, particularly a sustainable arrangement that would enable the two cities to really take this off in a meaningful way. And both mayors would be very content to meet at some point in the future again once this has been developed. So members, obviously subject to your comments today, if you're in agreement, the teams are already discussing what this might look like, and we would bring back a further report with more detail with regard to how that friendship arrangement might be taken forward from here. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Councillor McDade.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, John, for the report. I suppose just to clarify, is a friendship agreement different to twinning with Bethlehem then? But I suppose thank you for the work that's gone on it so far. I appreciate it's obviously been really difficult to even get a conversation going, given that there's a genocide in the region. But I appreciate everything that's being done to kind of reach out and do what we can. You've mentioned it, obviously, how important and how beneficial it will be for both our district and within Bethlehem if we can create those links for education and culture and everything, tourism, everything else that would come with it. So I'm really looking forward to further updates to see how this will move forward. And I'm happy to support the paper and propose it if needed. Thank you.
Okay, just in relation to your question, I think the chief executive did say that that the friendship agreement could be a stepping stone towards twinning or a sister city, but there's different options. Maybe could I suggest that a paper is brought back just in relation to the different options and explaining the differences between a friendship agreement and. Yeah, are you content with that, Councillor McDade?
I am sorry. Thank you. I maybe missed that bit. My signal's in and out a wee bit, so I maybe missed that part whenever John said it. But no, thank you. That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Harkin?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the officers for this paper. I'm glad to see that we're making some progress on this effort to twin with Bethlehem. And I'm sure that there's difficulties right now that are referenced in the paper because of what's happening in the West Bank. And it is difficult, but I think given the threat to by the US government to support Israel's plan to annex all of the West Bank and take it over and ethnically cleanse all of the West Bank, I think that this is a key way for us to express our solidarity and in a way try to block what Israel and the United States are attempting to do. And so I think this is to be very welcomed. And Bethlehem right now, just for people to know, is surrounded by nearly 40 illegal settlements that have been built during the so-called peace agreement years when there was supposed to be a two-state solution. And so that's the danger that is for people, Palestinians in Bethlehem right now. There's an attempt to erase them out of existence. And then just to mention, look, there's going to be a powerful documentary on Channel 4 tonight called No Other Land at 11:15 that just won an Oscar, made by Palestinians about what Palestinians are facing in the West Bank in the face of violent Israeli settlers. So I just would encourage anybody that can, to, if they have the ability to watch that tonight. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Duffy?
Thank you, Chair, and just to welcome the report, and it is really important, and we know the context in terms of why it was brought forward. We know and we're seeing at the minute what is happening as they try to move to phase 2 of the current ceasefire and peace process. So it is really important that we continue this work, and I just welcome the progress that has been made on it. Well done, and I look forward to seeing the next steps. Thank you.
Okay, Alderman Hussey?
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, welcome the report, progress. What does concern me in the areas of common interest is the absence of one interest that stretches right across our community, and that is the place of Bethlehem in Christian religious teaching. And I see no reference to that within the areas of common interest. And I would have thought that from this city and district, that is an area of common interest that many will have and would want to progress going forward. So is it possible that officers will include that in their engagement with the officers from the city of Bethlehem? Thank you.
Yeah, good, fair point, Alderman Hussey, and we've seen how the nativity scene in the city of Bethlehem was used this year, and last year they sent a powerful message right across the world to Christians right across the world. So it's a fair enough point, and officers will take that on board. Members, the paper has been posed by Councillor McDade. I haven't got a seconder by Councillor McGinley. And I'm not hearing any dissenting voices, so I'm going to take it as unanimous. Unless anybody indicates now. No. Members, item 9 is the Directorate Delivery Plan, and it outlines the vast amount of work that is carried out by this Directorate. It outlines the quite the progress that's been made in quite a lot of important projects. And I just want to take this opportunity at the very outset to thank officers for all the work that is done on behalf of the people that we represent. So I'm going to pass over to Ellen to take us through the report.
Thank you, Chair. And through you, the aim of this report is to present for consideration and members' approval the delivery plan for the strategic planning and support units for the year 25-26. As you will be aware, these particular plans form an important part of our planning and improvement framework, and they generally follow a standardised template as indicated in 2.2. They're also important, as highlighted at 3.1, for cascading Council's objectives, and also are an important element in terms of our journey in terms of continuous improvement, which obviously is a statutory duty. The document published at Appendix 1 provides an overview of the purpose of the strategic planning and support services, the actual services provided, progress update in relation to the current financial year, namely the first 9 months, and importantly, the key priorities, actions and measures for success for 25-26. And also it makes reference as well to the outcome improvement objective relating to improving our customer satisfaction by improving our customer support services and processes. Again, in terms of the recommendation, members, that's subject to your views, that you approve the strategic planning and support services plan for 25-26. Thank you.
Okay, members, Councillor McDade, are you coming on this item?
No, sorry, that was an accident. I had the button twice. Sorry for the last one.
Okay, members, there's no indicated speakers on this? But we do need a proposer. Councillor Farrell.
I'm happy to propose on behalf of the SLP and to thank the entire officer team for the achievements last year and the really lengthy list of important work that is scheduled for this calendar year. You know, there's so many important and crucial capital projects that we're going to be delivering over the next 12 months. They're going to transform this city and district. There's a lot of work to get into, but I know the team that we have on board is more than capable of delivering. So we've got the Acorn project, we've got play facilities at Ballinagard, we've got the Maritime Museum, with the public realm and the Bogside and Fountain, safety measures at the reservoir, movement with Templemore, movement with Riversdale, the new city cemetery. It's a very, very long list. But I notice in there's mention of the Towns Fund. And I know there's been an announcement today, I think it's the Neighbourhood Fund, where this city, along with Coleraine, is going to benefit from £20 million worth of investment. Now that funding has been secured, are we able to progress with that? Will there be a paper coming to a future committee, or can there be a verbal update today? But a fantastic paper, a really positive paper, is something we all can be proud of. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, members, for the comments on the extensive work completed and the very ambitious programme for next year. We have just received this afternoon or this morning from the Deputy Prime Minister's office the reinvigorated, if you like, rebranded version of the Towns Fund, together with supporting guidance and around it. We haven't had time to digest that yet. It will come forward as soon as possible into a future governance and strategic planning committee, and we will also be liaising with the 3 co-chairs to advise them of the guidance received and the criteria that are set out.
Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Chair. And like others, I welcome the reinstating of this particular fund that was announced the chief executive referred to there to, I think it was, I forget the term that you used, but there may be some changes within that. And I suppose from the point of view of those beyond the city, the question would be, do the boundaries remain the same as to where the 20 million can be spent? And a second question is that 20 million pound spend, or does it include within that the necessary administrative fees that will be involved in actually utilising the 20 million? Thank you.
So at this point, I'm just going to reserve comment on all of that. We haven't had time to even read. I've simply seen the email come in. I haven't had a time to open it up and read it yet. And colleagues and myself will be reviewing it tomorrow and the next day.
Appreciate that, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, now to get back to the Director Delivery Plan, I know the Towns Fund was, it was a very welcome announcement, but the Director Delivery Plan is in front of us, members. We've got a proposal from Councillor Farrell, seconded from Councillor Heaney. Is there any further comments on the Director Delivery Plan? I'm going to take the silence as everybody's endorsement, so that has passed unanimously. And again, just to pass on our thanks to everybody in the team that's working towards delivery. And it is good to see within the delivery plan that we are working with other organisations to develop projects. And this isn't solely a council delivery plan. We are working with outside agencies, outside bodies, and delivering for the people of the city and district. It's fantastic, and just commend everybody that's played a part in that. Item 10, the visually aware city and district. Ellen?
Yes, through you, Chair. This report is to update members on work progressed towards making the city and district a visually aware space, and also to seek your approval for an action plan to further advance this objective. As outlined in the report, a motion was actually agreed at this council, and we have been engaging with RNIB and the Dial Centre at the Northwest Regional College in order to promote training and improve awareness of the challenges faced by people who are blind or partially sighted, ultimately with the aim of improving access to their services. Through that engagement, we have now at Appendix 1 a draft action plan which encapsulates a number of activities which are currently being progressed and also to be progressed across the council that will support the objectives of a visually aware city and district through ensuring that best practice is actioned. And obviously the intention is that this is a dynamic document which will be reviewed on an annual basis. And as I said earlier, the plan also, or the document, includes updates where relevant. The engagement with RNIB is ongoing, and as I say, with positive outcomes in terms of that relationship. Again, in terms of the impacts of this, we see it as being helping towards promoting equality of opportunity for people who are blind or partially sighted, and the individual activities themselves will also benefit a range of stakeholders. The recommendation, again, in front of members is subject to your comments that the action plan at Appendix 1 is approved. Thank you, members.
Thanks, Ellen. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Ellen, for the report. It was a motion that I actually brought in the year that I was mayor, and one that is, I suppose, particularly relevant to myself as somebody who is partially sighted and lives with a lot of the challenges there. But I have to say, a lot of the work that has been undertaken by the council in conjunction with our RNIB has been really, really good and really powerful in moving things forward. And it is that equality of opportunity where people can enjoy life and thrive and engage and all that is so, so very, very important. And I would like to just comment as well on the work that was undertaken in the Ryan McBride Brandywell Stadium for people who are visually impaired as well to enjoy the joy of a football match. Sometimes not always the joy of it, unfortunately, but it certainly did take part. So I think that we are moving in the right direction, and we just need to continue to engage with the RNIB in relation to it. There's still a lot of challenges out there, and I suppose I was sharing with the chair before we came into the meeting. I tripped the other day because I was in a shop that had a black stool on a black floor. So there's still challenges out there, and there's still a lot of awareness that we need to raise, ensuring that people understand the challenges that people face if they are blind or partially sighted. So thank you, Ellen, for the report.
Okay, thank you, and I'm taking from your comments that you propose the recommendations in the report. Councillor McDade.
Thank you, Chair. I'll not keep coming back on. I'm happy to second the report, and thank you very much, Ellen, for the report. It's really good to see all the progress. I took part in the virtual reality training last year, I think, and it was so informative and like actually scary. Like what Sandra mentioned there about the black chair and the black floor. There's so much in our town that is so much tripping hazards that visually people who with visual impairment just wouldn't be able to see. So I'd recommend anyone who hasn't got on it to get in touch with RNIB and get it done. I know that I noticed there the Angel Eyes have been working for the QR codes in the restaurants too, which is really good to see that progressing fast. I know that was only a motion brought just before Christmas, so it's really good to see that happening at a quick pace. Be good to see that everybody will be able to enjoy the culture and the culinary delights that we have to offer here in Derry and Strabane. But no, thanks so much for the paper and for the work that's ongoing, and I'm happy to second the proposal. Thank you.
Okay, members, there's no further indicated speakers. The recommendations proposed by Councillor Duffy, seconded by Councillor McDade. Going to take that as unanimous, members. Item 11 is constitutional change working group update. And I'll pass over to Ellen again.
Yeah, through you, Chair, this report aims to provide members with an update on the Constitutional Change Unity Working Group and to provide details of the analysis of the results of the public call for evidence, which was prepared by Professor Mark Slavin of Ulster University, and also to seek members' comments and approval on the proposed next steps. As you can see from the paper, this arises from a motion that was passed by Council and the establishment of a working group which is open to all members. And further to that initial motion, there was also a motion forwarded in terms of or passed in September 22 relating to citizens' assemblies. In terms of the key issues to date, there's been 10 meetings of the working group, and all of those documents and papers relating research papers that we've actually found over that period are produced on the Constitutional Hub, which is on the Council's website, as indicated. At the most recent meeting, in terms of research, we presented an interactive dashboard providing regional economic data on Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, which has been prepared by the Ulster University Economic Policy Centre and in collaboration with Dublin City University. And also at the meeting, we heard from Professor Mark Slavin on his analysis of the results of the public call for evidence. And as you can see from the report, he broke that analysis down into 5 themes, which are outlined at section 3.3. Also, as I say, as part of advancing the motion, as indicated in the report, there was an initial member workshop or working group held with invited participants from the business and health sectors in September 24, trying to asking them to share with them or share with us their views of constitutional change and the implications for the council area and the wider Northwest. In reviewing that initial engagement, the working group has made a number of suggestions going forward, which are outlined at 3.7, which really that we'll hold another workshop, and really in addition to the details of the motion, but we provide potential question areas for advanced consideration, and also to provide invitees with details of the format of the workshop, so as to ensure that it is very much more a productive and collaborative experience. Also that we re-invite representatives who were unable to attend the earlier session. And if anyone is unable to attend, that they're given the option to actually make a written submission as opposed to attending the workshop. In addition, at the last meeting as well, members of the working group suggested a third tranche of engagement, i.e. with the community, in the community, takes place. And that's in addition to tranche 1, which was the public survey, and tranche 2 being the workshops, and that goes forward. And clearly, as I said, in terms of the next phase or proposed phase 3, it's actually a more interactive and complex process. So I think the focus of the next meeting of the working group will be around confirming who the invitee list is to the workshop, determining advance information that those invitees will be given, and then devising the approach to the community engagement process, including identifying resource requirements and timelines, the invitation communication process, how inclusivity is actually addressed, and the nature of the engagement, whether it's facilitated workshops or how it goes forward. And in order to facilitate that process, as said in the paper there, it suggested that specialist support could aid that process. Specifically in respect of the paper prepared by Professor Slevin, a discussion was held on how to disseminate that information. And again, it's been suggested that, again, subject to members' comments, a press release is prepared to promote the availability of the report. It's put on the website in that constitutional change hub, and a further consideration is given maybe to given the report to a targeted audience. In terms of the final point there, in terms of the second motion, we haven't managed to get any further progress in terms of the shared island unit. As mentioned in the report, if we do go forward with specialist support, we're anticipating it should cost no more than £1,500. And the recommendations in front of members today, firstly, that you endorse the approach to representative organisations being invited to attend a further member workshop or working group meeting. That secondly, that members approve the approach to the dissemination of the report prepared by Professor Slevin. Thirdly, that in principle approval is given to a third trans engagement with the community, subject to a report being brought forward on the details of the proposal, cost and other implications prior to action on it. And if, again, subject to you being happy with the third proposal there, that specialist support is provided to the working group in designing and identifying the resource requirements for the third tranche of the engagement process. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Ellen. Councillor Haney.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks to Ellen for the report. I just want to welcome it. As someone who's attended all 10 of the workshops or the working group meetings, we're making good progress, and this is a further step in actioning the motion that went through. It was a really important piece of work that Ulster University did for us, and was presented to us at the last working group, and I look forward to its dissemination and associated publicity. So thank you, Chair, and I'm happy to propose.
Okay, Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you as well to Ellen for the report. And I'm not on this committee, but I do attend the working group meetings. And I think this is it's important that the council progresses this work. So I very much welcome that. I'm sure people seen the latest Lucid poll, which narrowed the gap between those who want to maintain partition and those who want to undo partition down to 7%, 48% in support of partition, 41% opposing it, and around 10% people saying that they weren't sure yet. So this is obviously a discussion that's happening, and people are thinking through what their future is going to look like. Amongst young people, there was a very pronounced 50% support for undoing partition and creating a united Ireland. So I think that it's important that our council progresses this. Obviously, when you look at the crisis north and south of the border with housing, the crisis north and south of the border with the state of our healthcare systems. People want change, and I think that the change is about undoing partition, but it's also about undoing capitalism on this island as well. So I think that our council, being an advocate for constitutional change, playing a role in making sure that that discussion can happen, and allowing people to have access for ideas and information about what the change would look like, I think is crucial. And I think that that's what this working group is aiming to do. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Money.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Councillor Heaney and Councillor Harkin. I missed the last one. I think I've been to about 9 of the meetings, but I just couldn't make the last one, obviously, and this is the basis of this paper anyway. But I think there's a lot of progress been made so far. There's a lot of information, and the report by Professor Slevin has, I think, refined a lot of the issues that we were discussing. And obviously we're making good progress, and it's a very important working group because it's a very important issue that we're going through for everybody on the island. There was only one thing I could just remember. It was the one issue was, I think we all sort of faced it, was I think it was September's meeting when we had people in presenting. There was an issue, especially for people who came to present to the working group, was they could, especially when they were members of statutory bodies, let's say, they couldn't really give it an opinion on the issue because they wouldn't have any authority from their employers. So I think that's one issue going forward that we should probably, I think we did ask anyway, and we should ask anyway, because obviously there's people who couldn't express an opinion. They could express a personal opinion, but not in their capacity, even their employment capacity. So if we're bringing anybody in, I suppose we have to look at that at one issue, but that's probably the main issue. But in general, I think this working group's going in a good way. There's a lot of good work, and I commend officers and everybody involved who's brought it forward so far. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity. I want to contradict something that Councillor Harkin has referred to. He said that the purpose was advocacy. I think if he looks at the actual motions that brought about this committee, it was to seek views rather than advocate. And I think Council needs to be very careful when carrying that forward. And indeed, I would suggest it should be moving forward in an apolitical scenario. Council should also recognise that there are those, a sizable minority within our council area, whose focus is directly opposite to the views of many of those who would support the working group. And I'm sure that council themselves and councillors recognise that there are growing areas within others in the community who would support constitutional continuity and stability. And there are various meetings and conferences, etc., taking place. And I would hope, and I envisage, that there could come a request to this council that a similar working group be established with regard to constitutional continuity and stability, and that I hope there would be a reciprocation from within this chamber towards such a working group being established if it did come forward. As it stands, I'm talking about the process within the report. I am taking no opinion on the report and will be abstaining on the issue of recommendation, but just to be aware that I trust council can be open enough if a similar working group on constitutional continuity and stability, if such a request were to come forward, that the reciprocation of support from council officers and from council finance might be there to assist such a group move forward. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Hussey. And I suppose just reflecting on all the comments, I think that there's fantastic work that's been going on within council over the last 10 meetings, and council are leading the way in relation to this. Conversations are being had. at kitchen tables, at football matches, at sports grounds and workplaces, and councils involved in having a conversation. It's great. It would be great to see our opinions being involved in those conversations. And like if there's any proposals coming forward, then I have no doubt that this council will consider them, deliberate, but the obvious solution to me is that you join them as one. And that is, if people have views in relation to constitutional change or constitutional continuity, get involved in the conversation. Councillor Donnelly.
Chair, you just made the point that I was going to make, that I would rather have unionism at the working group and having the debate and let the best argument win. I don't think we should need. I have issues with some of the stuff in the framework, which how I asked a question at the last meeting. It's, if we go out and talk to the public, one of the first things they're going to ask is how and when. That's what people are going to ask. How are we going to get a United Ireland, or when are we going to get a United Ireland? And it's not within this group. It's not that type of debate. But I would like to see unionists in this framework and having, at the very least, a discussion, because I think it's important they have that conversation. And I think that probably, there's an event being organised by Newgate Arts and Culture, where they have a panel of Professor Colin Coulter, Professor Colin Harvey, Professor Peter Shiro and Mark Durkin. And I think that's very exciting. I think that's very, very interesting. I know Peter Shiro and a former SPAD at DUP's name escapes me at the minute. They've had Lee Reynolds. They've had meetings on how to protect the union, and for my curiosity, I would love to be at them meetings to see what's being said. So it's just natural to see what your opponents are saying and how to counteract it, and let the best argument go forward. But I think this event that's being organised in Newgate is going to be very interesting, and I think that they've taken a brave step there, because political unionism at the minute isn't engaging in even the discussion. They seem to be sort of going, don't talk about it and it won't come up. So hopefully I would like to see unionism engaging in the working group, and I'd also like to see political unionists, elected reps, take part in the discussions in Newgate. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks. And I think unionism are engaging in the discussions. Unfortunately, they're not as of yet as part of the council's discussions, but there's political parties that have that are undertaking initiatives, and there's huge engagement with unionists, with civic unionism, political unionism. Haven't yet been part of the conversation, but I would certainly welcome them. Councillor Mooney.
I thank you, Chair. I spoke already, but just on that point that Alderman Hussey raises, and to be fair to Councillor Heaney, I think originally when he brought his motion, I think he did reference the fact that he would welcome the unionist members in the chamber coming to the working group and participating, because he thought that was very important. And I think at the first meeting of it, that was also referenced as well. So, and obviously 10 meetings down the line, it would have been very useful if our unionist colleagues had been there, because there had been a forum for them to present their views, and as Councillor Donnelly has said as well. But I think I'll just note that as well. Thank you.
It's there's a recommendation that's in the report that's been proposed by Councillor Heaney, seconded by Councillor Mooney. And I know that Alderman Hussey has indicated his wish to abstain. Is there any other views in relation to this? So Alderman Hussey's abstention is recorded, and otherwise it's unanimous with all other members. So that item passes. Item 12, gender responsive budgeting. It's yourself again, Ellen.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Purpose of this report is to update members in respect of the motion on gender responsive budgeting and also to seek endorsement for the next steps in the piloting of an initiative in leisure services. As indicated in the paper, a motion again has been passed with regard to gender responsive budgeting, and further to that, officers met on a number of occasions with representatives from the Northern Ireland Women's Budget Group, namely to build capacity in respect of the approach and to explore potential areas for analysis purposes. Included within that engagement was actually a presentation to the senior leadership team in October 24, and that was by Alexander Brennan, who's the coordinator of the Northern Ireland Women's Budget Group, Aoife Mallon, who's the Research and Engagement Associate from the University of Ulster, Liz Law, who's a member again of the Northern Ireland Women's Budget Group and also a member of the Board of Directors for the UK Women's Budget Group. In terms of the key issues, again, it highlights that gender budgeting actually is good budgeting by reason of it's promoting transparency, the link between policy and budgets. It's evidence-based policy making, and it facilitates implementation of the equality and human rights duties. In terms of the initial work that has been done, we've done a bit of work in terms of scope and the feasibility of using leisure services as a potential pilot area, given the level of citizen participation and also the existence of core monitoring data. And there's been preliminary discussions with leisure management on that. And further to that exploratory work, representatives at Ulster University and the Women's Budget Group are keen to develop a pilot, the first stages of which involve identifying existing gender data across all the activities in leisure and highlighting gaps. And to support this process, it's now proposed that a working group comprising of leisure services management policy team representatives, cost collation and analysis officers, data and cost collation officers, along with support from the university and the budget group, are set up to assist in the data capture stage. Therefore, as I say, the recommendations in front of members today is that you note the progress to date and you endorse the proposed approach to the data capture stage of the pilot. Thank you, members.
Okay. Alan, thank you. Any indicated speakers? No. Councillor Barr?
Propose.
Okay. Seconded by Councillor McGinley. No dissenting voices. I'm going to take that as unanimous. Thanks, Ellen. And item 13 is the draft performance improvement objectives. And again, Ellen.
Yes, through you, Chair. Again, subject to members' comments, approval is required or requested today to release for consultation the draft improvement objectives for 25-26. As highlighted in the report, we are under a duty under the Local Government Act 2014 to promote continuous improvement. Now, as part of that, we're also obliged to consult annually on improvement objectives. We've actually worked and devised 4 improvement objectives for 25-26.
Okay.
Thank you.
Proposed by Alderman Hussey, seconded by Councillor Mooney. And that's unanimous, members. Members, items 14, 15 and 16 are open for information. Councillor Haney.
It's just on item 14, Chair. I just want to raise a point. There's a monthly meeting organised by McGee that involves residents from across the piece, and those meetings have been very constructive. They've dealt with a lot of issues and got things resolved, but it's my understanding that Council has been regularly invited to those meetings but hasn't been in attendance. So I'm just raising that point here and see if we could get that addressed, because to say those meetings are extremely useful. So I appreciate you take that forward.
Yes, and through you, Chair. we actually have attended after we were invited, the first of those meetings in December. There may have been others that we haven't been aware of. And of course, there was a very major meeting organised by McGee involving perhaps over 100 residents back in February, which I attended, Karen attended, and I actually spoke at. We've subsequently met with me, and a number of councillors were also there. We've subsequently met with the senior team in Ulster University just to discuss how we engage with residents going forward. And as the paper outlines today that myself and Karen have worked on, we've received numerous requests by individual residents, by representatives of residents groups, and by those involved in some of the neighbourhood renewal groups and others to meet and engage. So there's almost like a voluminous request to meet on across numerous fronts, almost overwhelming, I would say, at the moment. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out a way of structuring that engagement. And we want to, the recommendation today is that we sit down with our community partners in particular and with Ulster University to try to put this into some form of more structured engagement. And then we bring that back to you. We're responding to quite a few written requests also at the moment as well. So yes, we're engaging across all fronts, but we're also trying to bring a little bit of greater organisation to that so that all residents' voices can be heard and, more importantly, answered.
Thanks for that, John, and appreciate all of that. I think the meeting you referred to, the very large meeting, was a very different type of meeting. I'm sure you'd agree, and just saying these structured ones that McGee have been facilitated for quite some time. I think there has been 2 more since December. Are extremely useful. I've certainly found them useful when I was in. So, but it has been just remarked that the council would be better if council were in attendance. So I'm just making that point.
Thank you. And I know, Charlotte, it is good to see in item 16 the forward deputations to this committee. It is good to see that a residents group is scheduled to come on and present to the next meeting of this committee. So that ongoing engagement is vital as we move forward. And want to bring in Councillor Hergen.
Thank you, Chair, for letting us in. And I agree that I think that the council should participate in the monthly organised meetings down at the Hive at the McGee Village. I think that they're useful. There's growing numbers of resident groups that are actually attending, and councillors attend as well. And I think it's where people get questions. It's a forum really for people to ask questions, to get feedback, and to raise bigger issues. And the one thing I would say that is extremely positive right now is that there's a tremendous amount of resident engagement around issues involving university expansion. And obviously this paper is specifically about HMOs. And I think that across the board, residents who are in resident groups or not community groups are welcoming the fact that they've been heard and that there is going to be vehicles now for conversations to happen. But a lot of people are saying to me, look, we're at the point now where engagement's not enough. Residents groups have put forward a clear demand for the 10% HMO cap in the streets and areas around McGee. And so they want to be heard on that. So the engagement is very much welcomed, but there's also very clear demands. And John mentioned the big meeting that was held on the campus. And again, that was a huge turnout. And, residents put forward very, very clearly a set of demands around HMO regulation, around looking at the regulation or non-regulation of guest houses and Airbnbs. And I think that this is positive because people are really taking ownership over their areas and trying to make sure that they can be protected and developed. And it also brings in issues of, congestion and, how do we organise better public transportation services? So there's a lot of positivity that can come out of this. And I think that that's why it is very good that the CRAM, the concerned residents around McGee Group, is coming in to do a deputation. I think people want to be heard, and I think people have a lot of excellent proposals going forward. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Mini.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say that I was at the meeting up in McGee and I attended, and it was a very good meeting. It was very lively, to say the least, anyway. And I know our chief executive took it in the chin, anyway, but he ably took it in the chin, which was good to see. But I can just as a note, I can see that this CRAM is coming in. They come in to present before the committee next month. Is CRAM representing the other bodies? And I'm just wondering, how many other bodies is there? I mean, I know there was reference made by Councillor Harkin and others here, and Councillor Heaney, that there's several bodies, but I'm just wondering how many local bodies is there in relation to the actual issue at hand, and is CRAM effectively coming in on behalf of them all, or just one particular body? Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Members, I think really that's one of the things that we're going to try and establish in the engagement strategy, because there are ever emerging groups which I think it's important for us to engage with and give them the opportunity to have their say. So really that will be part of what we're trying to achieve, and we've got some meetings planned over the next week or so, and we'll bring a further paper back to members as soon as we can. And certainly we've been engaging with the officer team across the various departments, both in terms of, you know, HMOs from a planning perspective, but also the licensing of HMOs through our environmental health team, etc. So all of those matters we're considering, and certainly the key to this is to try and reach out and engage as many of those groups and organisations, and indeed, as John said, individuals, because there are some key individuals who have been contacting us as well. So certainly that's the plan, to try and do that comprehensively, and indeed link into any other forums through you know, the local community planning partnership, and indeed the university, who are also engaging with residents to give them as much opportunity as we can to engage in the process.
Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Chair. And fully appreciate that, you know, elected representatives and those DEAs impacted would quite rightly wish to be attending meetings with their electors in those areas with regard to the specifics of HMOs. And it doesn't impact me because I'm not a member of planning committee, but would there be an issue for members of planning committee? Could it be regarded as lobbying if a member of planning committee attended some of these meetings going forward?
Well, I don't know if there's any officers who are going to attend that, but as a member of the planning committee, I would feel confident attending the meetings, as long as we weren't talking about an individual application. So, but I suppose it's for individual members of the planning committee to make up their own mind.
Well, sure. I would actually argue that it's very important that members of the planning committee attend the meetings. Clearly, there shouldn't be, and there hasn't been in any of the meetings I've been in, specific reference to particular planning applications. It's more a policy issue. It's a broader policy issue, and as a number of members have commented today, it's actually a broader piece than simply HMOs. It's the potential negative impacts that might ensue from university expansion. So it's not primarily an HMO issue, albeit many of the traffic issues are beyond our control. But certainly from a planning member, elected member perspective, it's of great relevance.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a point raised by Alderman Hussey. I think sometimes members of the planning committee can get a cloak around themselves and immunity from, you know, certain topics that come around the town. But I thought it was important for me to go along, because I mean, it is I think I used the term hotspot in the first meeting. HMOs is the hotspot issue in relation to planning matters or issues in the town at the moment. But it was important. I mean, I was there as an aspect as a councillor, not as a member of the planning committee, but just to see, to pick up and to see what residents' concerns were, because it will come before us at some stage, and obviously it's important for us to gain as much information as we can from the community in relation to these issues as well. But just on the previous point, I'm not going to labour for Councillor Jackson, just on the point of those other groups, I mean, probably the thought I was thinking was that a lot of those groups will have the same issues, I suppose, coming together, and that was the only reason why I thought that maybe the groups might think about coming together and nominating, trying to narrow down issues. That, I'm not saying that they should. I'm saying it might be an idea that a lot of them will have the same issues, and let's say parking and congestion and different other issues. So maybe an idea if they thought about coming together and having some meeting of minds as well, they narrow down issues that are maybe important themselves. But thank you, Chair, for letting me back in again.
Yeah, if we can go back very briefly, I sincerely welcome the clarification, because it was an issue that I personally had on planning committee, was the representation of electors in my area, and I welcome the clarification that has come there. You never know, I might get back on the plan.
Thank you, Chair, and for letting me in again, and not to prolong the officer response, but it is a key consideration for us in terms of how we respond, because we are receiving either correspondence, emails, requests to go to numerous different types of meetings. And we as officers are unclear that the totality of those who are interested are being engaged with. And we are not clear on all of the groups that exist there. So I think part of what we're proposing today is either through meetings that are already set up through Ulster University or through this engagement with community partners, that we begin to establish who all the groups are and begin to establish a structured mechanism. We have at least one of the groups who's coming into, or has requested to come into the next governance and strategic planning committee, but I'm acutely aware that there is the potential when that group comes in that other groups may say, well, we haven't been invited in. And the message we want to get out there is that the council's interested in hearing from everybody. And we're in the process of ascertaining who everybody is.
Okay, members, I see a message in the chat box from Councillor Harkin that's been deleted. So I'm assuming there's no further indicated speakers, members. And items 14 to 16. Yep, Alderman Hussey.
Cut me off if you think I'm stepping beyond the line on item 16 with regard to deputations. It's really just to remind members of council, we have 8 representatives on the NAC, but every councillor is a member of NAC, and to remind members that there is an NAC members meeting here in the Guildhall on the 19th at 11 o'clock in the morning. And I would urge, as somebody sitting on the executive committee, that we have as many councillors from Derry City and Strabane attend that as is possible. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I'm sure everybody's heard you. So, members, no further indicated speakers. Can I get a proposer to go into confidential? Councillor McGinley and Alderman Hussey.